ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. We are reading from the book Meditation and Spiritual Life by Swami Yatiswarananda. We are currently in chapter 30, Reality of Spiritual Experience, beginning the section, The Mystery of Psychic Phenomena. There are several planes of consciousness. The sense plane, in which we see and know physical objects, is one plane. When we think or daydream, we live in the plane of mind for the time being. But we ordinarily know only a fraction of this plane. We know very little about our own mind and practically nothing about the vast cosmic mind called Mahat, meaning the vast, of which our individual minds are parts. What powers lie hidden in it, what strange things happen there, we have ordinarily very little knowledge. Just as we can manipulate the powers of the physical world, so can we manipulate prana, the psychic power. For some, this capacity comes naturally. In Warsaw, I met a lady who could see into the hidden nature of things. She could detect the defect in a machine which would not work. Swami Vivekananda spoke about a man in Hyderabad who could produce fresh roses, grapes, and many other things from nowhere. So the footnote, you see the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, volume 2, published in 1971, pages 11 and 12. Everyone has vast mental powers. Prana works in all people. Only in the vast majority of people, it is directed outwardly for the gratification of sense pleasures and worldly success. If we control this waste, we find psychic power accumulating within us. Then we should know how to guide it into spiritual channels. That is where we need the guidance of spiritual souls. Otherwise, our accumulated psychic power flows into other channels and we get some cheap occult powers. We may see things happening afar, clairvoyance, or hear distant sounds, or we may be able to read the thoughts of others. These things may amuse us for a time, but they have actually no higher value. They are only obstacles in our paths to reality. Psychic powers do not give us fulfillment and bliss and freedom from sorrows. They only make us more egotistic. Illumined souls pay scant attention to these powers. If they get them, they use them with great care for the good of others. Swami Brahmananda was a reservoir of spiritual power which he carefully used for the welfare of others. He was endowed with a deep psychic insight. One day he warned a young man, "Be careful. There is a thick cloud around you which will manifest when you are about 40 years old." The boy later on became mad and died around the time the Swami had warned him about. Swami Brahmananda could see the past and the future of his disciples. I first met him when I was a young college student. I went with a friend of mine to see him at Balaram Babu's house. He asked my friend to show him his palm. After looking at it, he said, "Lust will be of some hindrance to you, but if Sri Ramakrishna wills, it will disappear." But Swami Brahmananda did not look at my palm, even though Swami Premananda requested him to do so. I felt dejected, but later on when I learned that Swami Brahmananda had told his attendant that I would become a monk, I felt very happy and blessed. His prediction came to be true. I became a monk and my friend became a householder, but he remained a great devotee of God. In 1917, when I was in Bangalore, I fell ill with enteric fever. I was admitted to a hospital. One morning, an old man was brought in and placed in a bed next to mine. In the evening, he died. There was no fear of death in me, but I found my severe bodily pain difficult to bear. I then thought that it was better to die. As soon as such a thought became strong in me, I had a vision of Swami Brahmananda. He said, "How can you die? You have yet to do Sri Ramakrishna's work." Saying so, he disappeared. That experience changed my whole being. I was filled with great peace and a deep spirit of surrender. My illness also changed for the better. A number of Brahmananda's disciples had similar experiences. He had great powers, but he used them with discrimination and only for the welfare of others. Psychic powers are of various types. In the life of Sri Ramakrishna, we come across two young men, Chandra and Girija, whom his teacher Bhairavi Brahmani had introduced to him. Chandra carried with him a miraculous ball, with the help of which he had attained the power to disappear suddenly from human eyes. But he had not attained high mental purity, and so began to misuse this power to get ingress into other people's houses unseen. He was soon overpowered by lust, and as a result lost his power. The other young man, Girija, had another power. One night he demonstrated it to Sri Ramakrishna. It was pitch dark, and the master was finding it difficult to find his way to Dakshineshwar temple from Shambhu Malik's garden house. Girija, who was accompanying the master, then stopped and turned about, and there emanated from his back a bright beam of light which illumined the road right up to the gate of the Kali temple. Sri Ramakrishna, the super yogi that he was, never displayed such cheap psychic powers. In this particular case, he withdrew the psychic powers of Chandra and Girija into his own person, and thereby made them turn their mind towards God realization. The footnote here, see Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, pages 467 to 469. All great spiritual men have deprecated paying attention to psychic powers, as these distract the aspirant from the main spiritual path and may ultimately lead to total ruin. Psychic experiences are common to all sincere aspirants who practice systematic sadhana. One may then hear the ringing of bells, or may hear the great uncreated sound, the anahata dhvani, eternally vibrating in the universe, or one may see the mysterious inner light. All these are indications that you are on the right track. That is the only utility they possess. We should not mistake the signpost for the road. Swami Vivekananda, as a young man, used to have wonderful spiritual experiences. Once the power of clairvoyance came to him. Being of a rational bent of mind, he verified his experiences and found them to be true. However, when he told Sri Ramakrishna about it, the master advised him to discontinue his meditation for a few days so that the power may leave him. Many people are interested in ghosts and disembodied spirits. A true spiritual aspirant has no use for them and keeps himself aloof from such weird phenomena. But human nature has an incurable curiosity, and many people waste their precious time in quote-unquote spiritualism or quote-unquote spiritism rather than turning to true spiritual life. You may have read Swami Abhedhananda's book Life Beyond Death. In it, he describes his attending several seances. In India, if a man is possessed by a ghost, he is immediately taken to a temple or an exorcist and freed from that nuisance. But in America, he becomes a medium, a quote-unquote medium, and makes money out of it. Mediumistic phenomena may be true, but it is sheer waste of time to play with such things. Sri Ramakrishna had a disciple by name Niranjan. Before he went to the master, he had been acting as a medium for a group of quote-unquote spiritualists. When the master heard about it, he asked the boy to stop the practice immediately. "My boy," he told him, "if you think of ghosts and spooks, you will become. And if you think of God, divine will be your life." My boy, he told him, "if you think of ghosts and spooks you will become. And if you think of God, divine will be your life." This is from the Apostles of Sri Ramakrishna, page 162. In the life of Sri Ramakrishna, we found he had encountered spirits of all kinds. His teacher, Totapuri, too had an encounter with a spirit at Dakshineshwar. There was a Bhairava, a demigod who is a follower of Shiva, at the Dakshineshwar Kali temple. He was invisible to others. One day, when Totapuri was meditating under the Panchavati, he saw a tall and dusky figure coming down from the branches of the tree. Totapuri was not at all perturbed. He told his mysterious visitor, "Very well, you and I are the same being. You are one manifestation of Brahman and I am another. Come, sit down and meditate." The Bhairava burst out laughing and disappeared. So this is from the Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, page 478. Instead of wasting our times with quote-unquote spirits, we should go to the Supreme Spirit, the soul of all souls, the ultimate source of peace and bliss. We must learn to bypass or transcend the psychic planes and rise to the plane of the true spirit, where the individual soul comes in touch with the oversoul. As long as this union is not achieved, so long does the hunger of the soul persist, and as long as this persists, you can never get true peace or fulfillment. The touch of the cosmic spirit must come to the soul. The true inner light must illumine the dark chambers of the heart. Then alone can man transcend the sorrows of life. True spiritual experience comes directly from the Supreme Spirit. It is beyond the reach of ordinary mind and reason. As the great Sufi mystic Al-Ghazali said, "During the solitary state, things were revealed to me which it is impossible either to describe or point out. The sight is illumined by a light which uncovers hidden things and objects which the intellect fails to reach. The transport which one attains by the method of the Sufis is like an immediate perception, as if one touched the object with one's hand." The great Neoplatonic mystic Plotinus said, "You ask, how can we know the infinite? I answer, not by reason. It is the office of reason to distinguish and define. The infinite cannot be ranked as its objects. You can only apprehend the infinite by a faculty superior to reason, by entering into a state in which you are your own finite self no longer, in which the divine essence is communicated to you." Next section, what a true spiritual experience does for you. A true spiritual experience is judged by its fruits. Visions and other spiritual experiences must bring about a total transformation of character and make the spiritual seeker stronger, purer, and more magnanimous towards others. They must fill him with a new hope, which must be reflected in his actions. As Saint John of the Cross, the great Carmelite mystic of the 17th century, said about true spiritual experiences, "They enrich the soul marvelously. A single one of them may be sufficient to abolish at a stroke certain imperfections of which the soul had vainly tried to rid itself, and to leave it adorned with virtues and loaded with supernatural gifts." A lady with a strong imagination once told me in the West that she had a vision of Sri Ramakrishna. Another young man who had fallen in love with a girl saw quote-unquote visions of that girl during his meditations and mistook them for manifestations of the Divine Mother. I had to tell the plain truth in these cases, that they were all victims of their own too vivid imaginations. There are visions and visions. Some are products of vivid imaginations and are purely subjective. Others are objective manifestations of subtle realities which are perceived by the receptive mind. Their merits are to be judged by their results. Hallucinations imply perceptions which have no reality behind them, but are products of diseased nerves or disordered minds. Psychic experiences, though genuine, belong to an ever-changing subtle world and have no spiritual value. On the contrary, a true spiritual experience brings us directly in touch with the unchanging reality and has a transforming effect on our lives. It transforms our character, our consciousness, and our outlook on the world. Swami Vivekananda once made a blunt but very significant remark. Those who say that they have seen Sri Ramakrishna but have not imbibed something of his purity, renunciation, and devotion might as well have seen a monkey. The spiritual aspirant should not become impatient about getting spiritual experiences. They will come at the right time when the soul is ready. Till then, it is better for him to bring about a change in his life. It is far better to build up a pure, calm, and peaceful character than ruin one's life by vainly imagining that one is having wonderful spiritual experiences. When I was in the West, I came across fine men and women eager to profit by a systematic course of spiritual discipline. A Swiss lady had wonderful vibrations, purity and calmness, but she was dreamy. Her energy formed a whirlpool. She was taken to a psychiatrist, but he could do nothing. She wrote to me about her inner experiences. I gave her some spiritual instructions which worked wonders. At The Hague, I met a young Dutch who had had a strange experience of quiet but had lost it. He was eager to regain that calmness through systematic spiritual discipline. I asked him and his wife to do meditation in the proper way. They got considerable benefit from it. A highly cultured lady, the wife of a university professor in Switzerland, happened to read the book The Spiritual Teachings of Swami Brahmananda. She visited me and asked some questions. I found her spiritually inclined to a great degree, but she was unable to face the problems of life. I advised her to achieve a balance between the inner and outer life and be true to, quote, the kindred points of heaven and earth, unquote. I advised her to combine worship and work and to fill her soul with the music of the divine name. She struggled sincerely and underwent a remarkable transformation. A Protestant minister came to me after reading the life of Ramakrishna by Romain Rolland. He wanted practical instructions about spiritual life and was very sincere about it. I had several talks with him. I advised him to first of all find out where he actually stood and then follow the simple instructions I had given. He cooperated and soon attained a new inner harmony. His friends said that his sermons improved. Some people say that one cannot practice yoga in the West. After several years of experience, I can say with confidence that this is not at all true. In the West, I had the good fortune to meet more than one young man whose mind had been raised to a higher plane. When you come to the right person, you cannot but feel convinced. I saw several young people who attained joy and peace through spiritual practice. The effects of steady spiritual practice are sure to be felt by anyone, whether he is in the East or in the West. God sees only man's inner aspirations and not his outer dress or habits. Next section, varieties of spiritual experience. There are no limits to spiritual experience. There's an infinite variety of it. Some of these are lower. They're more of the nature of signposts or indicators than true spiritual experiences. When the mind is properly attuned, you may hear supersensuous vibrations. You don't hear them with your physical ear. They are heard within your mind. Sometimes you may hear the melody of bells ringing at a distance. They are easily heard in lonely places, especially at the dead of night. I used to hear them when I was at Mayavati. The footnote here, Mayavati, a hill station in the Himalayas, the editorial office of Prabuddha Bharata, a monthly organ of the Ramakrishna Mission Order, is located there. Swami Yatiswarananda was there as the editor of the journal in 1922 and again during 1926 through 27. Even here in Wiesbaden, I hear it. Sometimes you can feel certain vibrations arising out of the depths of the Akasha, that is space, within you, just like ripples produced in a pond when a stone is thrown in. If you are in a certain state of concentration, you can hear the Anahata Dhvani, the eternal, uncreated sound vibration of the cosmic mind. Then there is the experience of the mystic light. This inner light is the light of consciousness. Some of these experiences are good in that they indicate that you are getting more concentration, but you should not pay too much attention to them. If you do, you are caught. You forget your goal and get attached to side attractions. As I have repeatedly stated, mere concentration is not of much use. Concentration itself may not have a spiritual content. Our goal must be spiritual. If we hear a mystic sound, we should go to the source of that sound. If we see a light, we must go to the source of that light. The Supreme Spirit is the source of all these phenomena, and that is our goal. A sincere aspirant should brush aside these lower experiences when they come. He should not talk about them to others, thereby making them also confused. When you do japa and meditation, think only of the Ishta Devata, who is the embodiment of consciousness and bliss. Do not think about psychic experiences. Most of the aspirants cannot meditate without a holy personality to center their feelings upon. Let them begin with this form, his form, and make it vivid and conscious. The form arouses in us divine attributes, and as our concentration deepens, we come in touch with the Ishta Devata's consciousness. In the holy personality, we see the link between the individual and the universal consciousness. Then we realize the same link in ourselves. Later on, our consciousness expands, and we then regard the individual as a manifestation of the universal. Finally, both the universal and the individual gets merged into the transcendental, which is spoken of as the one without a second. Later on, advancing further, the impersonal, which manifests itself as the personal, becomes the center of our experience. We feel our own soul and that of all others as manifestations of one undivided consciousness. We see the Supreme Spirit in all beings and feel a deep inner urge to serve all beings. We are filled with deep love and compassion for all without creating moral confusion in us. First, we come in touch with the cosmic vibrations. Next, we come in touch with the cosmic mind. Then we feel the contact between our finite consciousness and the infinite consciousness. From one point of view, all these are concentric circles, one inside the other. We can live on the plane of thoughts. We can reduce our body and that of others to mere thoughts. We can then silence these thought forms and reach the plane of the impersonal and enjoy supreme peace and blessedness. There must be three types of verification of a spiritual experience. Verification of my own experience by repeating it again and again. Verification of my own experience by comparing it with what I heard from my teacher. Verification of my own experience by comparing it with what is said in the true scriptures. If we do not make these verifications, there is great scope for self-delusion, and our experience may even become dangerous fancies of an uncontrolled mind. When we have body consciousness, we must be in tune with the physical world. When we are at the mental plane, we must be in tune with the cosmic mind. And when we rise to the spiritual plane, we should be in tune with the Supreme Spirit. The light and joy and harmony that we feel at the higher plane must be brought out and made to manifest in the lower planes. Then we become channels of divine power, wisdom and bliss for the good of the world. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.